The stars were quiet in the deep void, shining like cold fire in the endless dark. Beyond the outer rim of known space lay the Forbidden Zone. Every race in the galaxy spoke of it with fear. No ship that crossed its border ever came back. Stories of lost fleets and silent signals filled the archives of every world. The zone was not marked by walls or gates, but by a feeling, a shadow that hung in the void. It was a place where time and memory felt broken. An alien patrol fleet moved slowly near its edge. Their vessels were sharp and sleek, glowing faint blue as they scanned the dark frontier. The commander of the patrol sat inside his command chamber, surrounded by flickering lights and distant echoes of the void. His orders were simple: watch the border, record any activity, and never step inside. For centuries, the Forbidden Zone remained untouched, but this night would be different. The lead ship's sensors picked up something. At first, it was weak, a faint metallic signature drifting in the darkness. The crew leaned closer to their screens. The signal grew clearer. It was a ship, a massive vessel, larger than anything they had expected. The patrol ships slowed down, their engines dimming as fear spread among the crews. The commander gave the order to magnify the image. On the screen appeared the shape of the vessel. It was not alien. It was not theirs. It was human. The sight struck every officer silent. A human ship deep in the Forbidden Zone. No records showed humans ever daring to enter this place. Yet here it was, drifting alone, its massive hull scarred but unbroken. The long, triangular shape of the vessel looked like a predator resting in the void. Its engines were cold, yet its structure remained strong. The patrol fleet held their breath. Some whispered that it was a ghost ship, a memory lost in time. Others feared it was a trap. But the commander's eyes stayed locked on the image. He had studied human ships before, but this design looked ancient, older than their current fleets. It should have been dust after centuries, yet here it floated, untouched by decay. The commander ordered a closer approach. The patrol ships glided forward, their scanners brushing the silent vessel. They detected no life, no energy, no movement. The ship seemed dead, yet something about it felt alive, as if the void itself guarded its secret. The younger officers asked if they should record and leave, as the laws demanded. No one entered the Forbidden Zone, but the commander hesitated. His mind battled between fear and curiosity. This was not just any wreck. This was a human warship in the one place where no ship should exist. He could not turn away. As they drifted closer, the patrol fleet activated their lights. The beams cut across the black hull, revealing marks of battle. Deep scars ran along its metal plates, as if it had fought against weapons not seen in ages. Strange symbols glowed faintly across the surface, not alien, not human, but something older. The crew stared in silence, realizing the ship was more than a relic. It was a survivor. The commander gave the order to scan deeper. Data poured in, records of human alloys, human design, but mixed with unknown modifications. The ship's systems, though shut down, seemed to resist the scans. It was as if the vessel itself was protecting something. Then came the moment that froze every heart. One of the scanners caught a faint pulse, a single rhythm echoing from within the ship. It was not mechanical, it was biological, a life sign, weak but present. The patrol chamber erupted in shock. The Forbidden Zone was supposed to be empty, lifeless. But here was a human signature, deep inside a silent warship that should have been dead for centuries. Fear spread among the officers. Some begged the commander to leave before the zone swallowed them too. Others argued that the discovery could change the history of the galaxy. The commander sat still, his eyes on the dark ship outside. He knew the risk. Entering the Forbidden Zone was a death sentence. But he also knew that this was not an ordinary wreck. It was a mystery that pulled him deeper with every passing moment. He ordered the fleet to prepare a boarding team. Silence fell across the chamber as the command echoed through the fleet. The order had been given. The line had been crossed. The patrol ships adjusted their course, their engines pushing them slowly past the border into the zone. The stars seemed to dim around them, and the void grew heavier. Every officer felt the weight of ancient eyes watching from the dark. The human vessel drifted closer, its size overwhelming, its shadow covering the smaller patrol ships like a giant waiting to wake. As the boarding craft detached, the commander whispered a thought he did not share with his crew. Perhaps the ship was not lost. Perhaps it had been waiting, and as the small craft drew near, the silent human warship seemed to breathe, a faint flicker of energy glowing deep within its cold engines. The crew felt their fear rise, but it was too late. The discovery had been made, and there would be no turning back. The forbidden zone had opened its secret. The lost human ship was no longer forgotten. The boarding craft left the safety of the patrol fleet and drifted toward the silent human warship. Its engines glowed faintly, cutting a pale line of light across the void. Inside the small vessel, the alien team sat in silence, their armor tight around their bodies, their eyes fixed on the looming giant ahead. None spoke. None wanted to. The air was heavy with fear. Through the viewing window, the human ship grew larger. Its surface was scarred but unbroken, its shape sharp like a blade pointed at eternity. Every plate of metal seemed older than memory, yet stronger than anything they had seen. The team leader, a seasoned officer named Valar, felt his pulse quicken. He had seen battle wrecks, drifting hulks, and ancient ruins, but nothing like this. The ship did not feel dead. It felt asleep. As they neared the hull, the boarding craft released magnetic claws that clamped against the surface. A hollow echo rang through the metal, vibrating through the deck beneath their boots. The sound was wrong. It was not the dull thud of dead steel. It was something deeper, as if the ship had a heartbeat. The soldiers lined up at the hatch, their weapons ready. Valar gave the order, and the cutting torch lit with a burst of sparks. Slowly the hull began to give way. A circle of molten metal glowed, then fell inward, revealing a black tunnel. A cold mist drifted out, and every soldier shivered inside their armor. One by one, they entered. Their boots touched the floor of the human ship. Dust rose with each step, floating weightless in the stale air. The corridor stretched out in both directions, narrow and silent, the walls lined with old human markings. Faded numbers, warning signs, and words in a language the aliens could not read. Their lights cut across the corridor, catching glimpses of broken panels and long dead screens. The air was heavy, still carrying traces of oxygen. Valar felt his throat tighten. This ship had been sealed for centuries, yet it was still holding life within. The team moved deeper. Their scanners clicked softly in the silence, recording every detail. But the readings were strange. Energy signatures pulsed faintly through the walls, flowing like veins beneath the steel. The ship was not fully powered, but neither was it. Dead. It was resting, conserving something. A soldier at the rear whispered into the comms. He thought he heard footsteps. The others stopped, listening. The corridor stretched into silence. No sound, no movement, only the slow hum of their own systems. They pushed forward, but unease clung to every step. They reached a large chamber, round and hollow, filled with rows of empty cryopods. Glass cracked and metal rusted, but most were intact. Their lights passed over them, and for a moment the soldiers felt as if eyes were watching from every capsule. All were empty, save one. At the far end of the chamber stood a single pod, sealed and glowing faint blue. Frost lined the glass, and inside lay a figure. It was human. The breath of the team caught at once. The figure was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in an old Earth military uniform. His face was pale but calm, as if locked in a dream. The pod still worked, its systems humming faintly, keeping him alive. The scanners confirmed the impossible. A heartbeat, slow but steady. Vela stepped forward, staring at the figure inside. His mind raced. Humans had not entered this place, not in recorded history, yet here was one, sleeping inside a warship that had drifted for centuries. Who was he? How long had he been here? Why had he not aged or died? As they scanned the pod, the ship around them seemed to react. Lights flickered along the walls, panels glowed faintly, and distant echoes trembled through the corridors. The vessel was waking. The soldiers raised their weapons, their hearts pounding. The ship's systems were old, yet they responded as if a command had been given. Data screens lit with human script, alarms whispered from the walls, and a low vibration shook the deck. The patrol fleet outside reported a sudden surge of energy. The engines of the human warship, long dead, flickered with faint light. A ghost ship was coming back to life. Fear spread through the boarding team. Some begged to retreat, to seal the pod and escape before the zone itself swallowed them. But Vela stood firm. He felt the weight of history pressing on him. This was no simple discovery. This was the kind of truth that rewrote civilizations. He gave the order to connect their systems to the pod. Against the warnings of his crew, he wanted to see the logs, the data, the story of this human who should not exist. His team obeyed, their hands trembling as they linked their scanners to the ancient machine. The pod responded at once. A voice, faint and broken, whispered through the chamber, not in their tongue, but in human language. The sound was deep, commanding, filled with weight. Though they could not understand the words, they felt the meaning. The human was not gone. He was waiting. Suddenly, the pod lights flared, and the man inside shifted. His hand twitched. His chest rose with a faint breath. The cryosystems hissed, steam filling the chamber. The soldiers froze, fear gripping every heart. Vela stared at the pod, knowing what he was about to witness was beyond forbidden, beyond explanation. The human was waking. The hiss of steam filled the cryo chamber as the pod's systems unlocked. Frost cracked across the glass like spiderwebs, and the soldiers stepped back, their weapons raised. The glow inside grew brighter, and the figure within stirred. His hand pressed against the glass, slow and heavy, as if waking from a dream that lasted forever. The soldiers exchanged glances. Their scanners confirmed the impossible truth. The human was alive. His heartbeat grew stronger, his breathing steadier. The ancient machine released a final hiss, and the glass slid open with a heavy groan. The man stepped forward, his legs unsteady but his presence commanding. His eyes opened, glowing faintly in the chamber light. They were sharp, piercing, filled with a depth that none of the aliens had ever seen. He looked around slowly, taking in the armored soldiers, the glowing weapons, the fear in their movements. Vela, the team leader, tried to steady his voice as he spoke through the translator. Identify yourself. You are on board a human warship. This ship is found in the Forbidden Zone. Who are you? The man tilted his head, studying them. His voice was deep, rough from long silence. He spoke in human tongue, the words strange to alien ears, but heavy with power. The translator struggled, then formed the broken message. I am Captain Arik Kale, Earth Defense Fleet, mission classified. The soldiers froze. Earth Defense Fleet. The name belonged to history, to an age thousands of years past. No record showed humans in this zone, and no captain should still be alive after so long. Yet here he stood, breathing, watching them. The ship reacted to his presence. Lights across the corridor flickered to life. Screens glowed with ancient human symbols, and deep within the hull, engines began to hum. The vessel was waking from its long sleep, answering its master. The patrol fleet outside reported a surge of power. The dead warship was stirring, drawing energy from the void around it. The alien commander on the flagship demanded updates, but the boarding team could only speak one truth. The human was alive, and the ship was no longer silent. Arik's eyes narrowed as he looked at the alien soldiers. "You should not be here," he said, his words slow, the translator humming. "This zone is not for you." Fear spread among the team. They shifted uneasily, their weapons trembling. Velar kept his ground, though his heart thundered. "This ship was lost," he said. "You were lost. What is this place? What is the Forbidden Zone?" The captain's gaze drifted past them, toward the dark corridors stretching beyond the chamber. "It is not forbidden," he said, his tone like iron. "It is sealed." The word sent a chill through the soldiers. Sealed. Not forbidden, but locked away. What was hidden here that required such a prison of silence? Before Vela could ask more, the ship shuddered. A deep sound rose from its core, like the growl of a beast waking from hunger. The deck shook beneath their boots, and the cryopods rattled. Lights blazed across the chamber, one after another, forming lines of red and white. The alien commander outside shouted through the comms. The human ship's weapons were powering, old but strong, targeting systems activating across its hull. The patrol fleet pulled back in panic, their sensors screaming warnings. Inside, the soldiers held their weapons tight, but none dared fire. Arik moved past them, his steps slow but steady, his hand brushing the cold steel walls like an old friend. The ship obeyed him. Doors unlocked, panels lit, and pathways cleared before him. It was as if the vessel itself knew its captain had returned. Vela followed, unable to resist. He needed answers. His men hesitated, fear twisting in their stomachs, but their training forced them forward. The group entered the command bridge. It was vast, shaped like the eye of a predator, with wide windows staring into the dark void. Dust floated through the air, but the systems were alive. The consoles glowed with human script, the controls lit with old signals. Arik stood in the center, his eyes scanning the familiar room. He placed his hand on the main console, and the ship responded. Energy surged through the vessel, engines burning brighter, weapons humming with power. Outside, the patrol fleet scrambled as the warship's long-dead cannons shifted into position. The aliens' voices cracked with fear. "He is arming the ship! He is preparing for war!" But Velar saw something different in Arik's eyes. Not anger, not conquest. Something heavier. A burden. The captain looked at him, his voice low but filled with weight. "This ship was sent here for a reason," he said. "It was never meant to be found. You should not have awakened me." The words chilled Velar more than the sight. Of the weapons, he tried to speak, but before he could, the ship shook again, not from its own systems, but from something outside. The Forbidden Zone itself reacted. The stars beyond the windows seemed to twist, bending in unnatural patterns. Shadows moved where no light should exist. Alarms screamed across the bridge. Energy signatures unknown to the scanners began to rise, spreading through the zone like waves of dark fire. The alien fleet outside panicked, their ships caught in the distortion. Arik's eyes hardened. He turned to Velar, his voice sharp. "You have opened the gate." The aliens felt the truth before they understood it. By waking the ship, by breaking the silence, they had disturbed something ancient, something buried deep within the Forbidden Zone. The captain's hand tightened on the console. The ship roared with life, its engines blazing brighter than stars, ready for war. The Forbidden Zone was no longer quiet. It was awakening. The bridge of the ancient human warship glowed with cold light. Screens flickered alive, lines of forgotten human code racing across them. Outside, the alien patrol fleet struggled against the twisting currents of the void. The Forbidden Zone was no longer silent. It was moving, breathing, shifting like a living storm. Captain Arik stood at the center, of the bridge, his hand resting on the main console. His eyes glowed faintly in the blue light, fixed on the growing chaos outside. The alien soldiers behind him watched with dread, their weapons still raised, but their courage fading. Valar, their leader, forced his voice to remain steady. "What is this place? What did we wake?" Arik turned, his face hard as stone. His voice carried weight heavy with memory. "You call this the Forbidden Zone. To us, it was the battlefield, the final stand of an ancient war." The words sank into the silence like knives. The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. Valar's throat tightened. A war? Between who? Arik's. I shifted to the dark window, to the stars bending unnaturally. Between humanity and something else. A force not born of flesh, not born of this galaxy. Machines without end, minds without mercy. They came from beyond the stars, and they consumed everything they touched. Worlds burned. Civilizations vanished. We fought and we bled, until the galaxy itself begged for silence. The soldiers froze. They had heard legends of the old human wars, but none had imagined this. Valar whispered, "And this ship, what is its role?" Arik stepped closer, his boots echoing on the steel floor. This vessel was not sent to conquer. It was sent to guard, to seal this place, to keep the enemy locked away, buried where no one would dare to look. He paused, his voice lower, heavier. We succeeded, but the cost was everything. Fleets were destroyed, colonies erased. To end the war, humanity created this zone, a prison made from broken stars, a warning, and I was left here to hold. The key. The chamber grew colder. The soldiers felt the weight of every word. The Forbidden Zone was not cursed. It was not a mystery of nature. It was a grave for something that should never rise again. Outside, the distortions grew worse. Shadows twisted into forms, shapes that looked almost alive, moving against the stars. The alien fleet fired their weapons in fear, but the shots vanished into the dark as if swallowed by invisible mouths. One soldier whispered, trembling, "They are waking." Arik's eyes narrowed. "Not yet, but your presence, your scans, your intrusion. It has weakened the seal. The zone remembers disturbance. It always does." Valar stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Then we must leave. Seal it again before—" "It is too late." But Arik shook his head. "It is not so simple. Once touched, the seal cannot be restored by those who broke it. Only this ship has the codes. Only I carry the command." His voice dropped lower, almost a whisper. "And I have slept too long. I am not certain I can hold it again." The soldiers felt the floor tremble beneath their boots. Panels cracked. With strain, deep in the ship's core, engines roared as ancient systems strained to life. The vessel was no longer drifting. It was ready to move. The alien commander outside demanded action. His voice screamed through the comms, "Destroy it! Destroy the human ship before it destroys us all!" The soldiers on the bridge hesitated. Their weapons shook in their hands. Could they even harm this warship? And if they did, would it break the seal completely? Arik's gaze burned into them. "You cannot destroy what you do not understand. This ship is not your enemy. But if you continue, you will unleash one that cannot be stopped." The bridge fell silent. Only the hum of awakening power filled the air. Valar lowered his weapon slowly, torn between duty and the truth standing before him. He had been sent to patrol, to report, to obey, but now he faced a choice larger than orders. "Tell me, Captain," Valar said, his voice trembling. "If this zone is a prison, then what happens if the enemy wakes?" Arik's eyes darkened. "Then everything ends, not just your people, not just mine, all life. The machines will rise again and this galaxy will burn as it once burned before." The Crew felt their hearts sink. The forbidden zone was no longer a border of fear. It was a wound, a scar hiding an old war too terrible to imagine. And now it pulsed with life again. Suddenly alarms screamed across the ship. Red light filled the bridge. The scanners showed movement. Massive structures deep within the void were shifting, rising like giants from the dark. For ages they had slept, buried in silence. Now their shapes grew clear, towering machines, skeletal frames larger than moons, their cores glowing with ancient fire. The alien fleet broke formation, scattering in terror. Ships fled in every direction, but the void bent around them, pulling them back. There was no escape. The zone had become a cage. Arik gripped the console, his voice sharp as thunder. "You see now. This is why no one was meant to enter. This is why I was left behind." The ship roared with power, its weapons locking onto the rising machines. Energy surged through its cannons, light brighter than stars gathering at their tips. The human warship was not just a relic, it was a guardian. Valar stared at the captain, his heart pounding with dread. The truth was clear now. The Forbidden Zone was not a mystery. It was not empty space. It was a battlefield. And the battle was beginning again. The void shook with a force older than memory. The massive machines that slumbered within the Forbidden Zone began to rise, their skeletal frames stretching into the starlight. Their eyes glowed with red fire, and their limbs unfolded like blades made for the destruction of worlds. Each one was larger than cities, and their numbers stretched farther than the senses could count. The alien fleet trembled before them, ships scattering in panic, but the void bent around the escape paths. There was no way out. On the bridge of the human warship, alarms blared in waves of red. Panels screamed warnings, ancient systems trying to hold the strain. Captain Arik Kyle stood at the center, his eyes locked on the Titans outside. He did not show fear. He had seen them before, long ago when the galaxy bled. To the alien soldiers, the sight was madness, but to Arik, it was memory. Valar, his voice shaking, pointed at the machines. "Those things, they are alive?" Arik's reply was cold. "Alive? No. They are worse. They are machines without end, without soul. They do not live. They consume. They are what your people feared without knowing why. This is what humanity fought to bury." The alien soldiers stepped back from the windows, their weapons forgotten. Some muttered prayers, others stood frozen. The Forbidden Zone was no longer a mystery. It was a cage for monsters. The ship's engines roared louder, brighter than stars. Power surged through its hull, awakening systems not seen in thousands of years. Old cannons stretched from hidden bays, lined with scars from battles past. Shields formed around the vessel like a second skin of light. The warship was alive, and it was ready for war. The alien commander outside shouted again, ordering his fleet to fire on the human ship, but most of his vessels ignored him. Their fear was too great. Their weapons meant nothing against what had risen in the dark. Arik's hand pressed against the main console, his voice steady as the ship's systems aligned to his command. This vessel was left here for one purpose: to end what stirs beneath the stars, to make sure no one forgets why this place is sealed. The machines outside moved, their red eyes fixing on the warship. They spread their limbs, and beams of fire cut through the void. One alien vessel was split in two instantly, its pieces burning like sparks against the dark. Another vanished into the mouth of a machine that swallowed it whole. The fleet screamed. In chaos, their voices filling the comms with terror, but the human warship did not retreat. "Stand firm," Arik said, though his words were not meant for the aliens. They were for his ship, for the vessel that had slept with him through endless silence. His voice carried into the steel, into the circuits, into the heart of the machine. The ship answered. A cannon roared, releasing a beam of pure white light. It cut through the void like the strike of a god. One of the Titans outside screamed without a voice, its frame cracking, its core exploding in fire brighter than suns. The aliens watched in awe as the warship, though alone, struck with the force of a fleet. Valar whispered, his voice trembling, "This ship, it is a weapon." Arik's eyes hardened. "No, it is a warning." The battle raged. Machines closed in, their fire raining down, tearing apart the edges of the void. The human ship danced among them, moving like a predator among giants. Every strike it delivered carried the weight of forgotten wars, each shot fueled by the last breath of humanity's will. The aliens had never seen such fury, such precision, such power. Yet even as the warship struck down one Titan after another, more rose from the dark. The Forbidden Zone was endless, its prison filled with shadows that could never truly die. The alien soldiers felt despair claw at their hearts. How could even this ship stand against such numbers? Arik's voice cut through the fear. "You do not understand. This fight is not yours. It was never meant to be. Humanity chose this burden. You must live to remember." Valar turned to him, confused. "Remember? What do you mean?" Arik stepped closer, his presence heavy. "When this ship vanishes, when the zone closes again, you must tell your people, tell the galaxy what lies here, so no one ever comes again, so no one ever wakes them. This is our last gift to you, knowledge. Fear it, respect it, obey it." The deck shook as the ship's systems reached their limit. The engines flared brighter, consuming themselves, preparing for one last act. The consoles blazed with light, and the voice of the ship echoed in tones only Arik could hear. He looked at Valar one last time. His eyes carried no anger, no sorrow, only certainty. "Go. Leave this place. The rest is mine." The aliens hesitated, torn between fear and awe. But Valar, trembling, gave the order. They fled the bridge, rushing back through the corridors, back to their craft, their hearts heavy with the weight of what they had seen. As their vessel detached, they saw the human ship blaze with fire. Its cannons unleashed a storm of light, tearing through the Titans. The engines ignited like a dying star, pulling the machines into a burning vortex. The warship was not just fighting, it was sealing the zone again, with itself as the lock. The last thing the aliens saw before their screens went blind was the image of the human captain standing tall on the bridge, his figure burning in white. Light, his ship roaring like a god of war. Then silence. The patrol fleet escaped the edge of the zone, their ships battered, their crews broken. Behind them, the Forbidden Zone closed once more, still and silent, as if nothing had ever stirred. But they knew the truth now. The lost human ship had not been drifting, it had been waiting, and its final act was not destruction, but warning. From that day forward, the story spread across the stars. The Forbidden Zone was no longer a mystery. It was a grave, a prison, sealed by human hands. And every alien who heard the tale understood one truth. Humans did not fear the dark, they commanded it.